Every morning before the sun rose over Atlanta's horizon, Darius Brooks stood by the main checkpoint of the Atlanta orbital port. The metallic hum of cargo drones blended with the faint rhythm of jazz leaking from his earpiece. He liked to start his shift with something his grandmother used to play, John Coltrane, soft and patient, like a prayer in motion. It reminded him of home, of Sunday mornings when the neighborhood smelled of biscuits and coffee and the world felt kind. He'd been working security there for almost 7 years. Most travelers barely noticed him, the uniform, the badge, the practiced smile. They passed with eyes on their holoscreens, talking in half languages about trade routes and orbital schedules. But every day at precisely 0742 she appeared, tall, silver-skinned, elegant. Her movements had the calm precision of someone who understood gravity differently. The alien woman's features shimmered between metallic blue and soft lavender depending on the light. Her people, the Calithari, were diplomats, engineers, thinkers, first contact legends who joined Earth's alliance a decade ago. At first, Darius waved out of habit, just a polite gesture like he'd offer any regular commuter. But she paused that first morning, tilting her head slightly, then raised a slender, crystalline hand in return. The gesture felt simple, yet it stuck with him all day. It wasn't romance, just recognition, the kind that said, "I see you." He began to expect her each morning. The shuttle doors opened, the crowd poured through, and there she was. Always composed, always graceful, always returning that wave. Sometimes she even inclined her head, like she'd memorized the rhythm of his greeting. Colleagues noticed eventually. "Man, that alien lady your morning girlfriend now?" Malik teased, grinning as he scanned cargo logs beside him. "Boy, hush," Darius said, chuckling. "I ain't like that. She just polite, that's all." But even he couldn't deny that her acknowledgement changed something in him. In a place where he was invisible, a middle-aged black man keeping watch in a sea of stars, someone finally looked back. Atlanta's orbital district had changed over the years. Skyscrapers glittered with plasma conduits. Air cars glided between lanes of neon. Yet beneath it all, in the corners where humanity still breathed slow and real, people like Darius held things together. He took pride in that. He didn't have degrees or ranks, but he had reliability. His grandmother had always said, "Respect ain't bought, baby, it's lived, one honest act at a time." So every day he waved. Then one morning, she didn't come. He waited through the 0742 shuttle. Nothing. Checked the manifest. Her diplomatic shuttle still listed, but she wasn't aboard. He lingered longer than usual, even though his shift technically ended. "Brooks, you good?" Malik asked, noticing the stillness in his posture. "Yeah," Darius murmured, eyes fixed on the empty boarding gate. "Just weird not seeing her, that's all." He told himself not to read into it. People missed flights, right? Maybe she got reassigned. Maybe aliens had vacations too. But something about her absence hollowed the morning. The station lights seemed harsher, the music flatter. That night, as he rode the maglev back down to the city, he found himself glancing up through the transparent roof. The stars hung sharp and clean above the curve of Earth, distant yet familiar. Somewhere out there she existed, just another traveler in a vast, indifferent galaxy. Still, he felt a tug, faint but real, like an unanswered question. Why did her not being there matter so much? As he stepped off at Peachtree Terminal, the city lights greeted him with their usual orange haze. He smiled at a passing kid selling glow bands, gave $1, and thought of the wave that never came. Maybe, he thought, kindness had its own gravity, pulling across distances unseen. And somewhere above, beyond the clouds and satellites, a silent signal flickered, unnoticed. Before we continue Darius's incredible journey, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the rest of this unbelievable human story. Rumors traveled fast in the port, faster than any shuttle. Within 2 days of her disappearance, people were already talking. The Calithari envoy had pulled back from trade negotiations. Something about diplomatic realignment. Nobody knew the full story, but everyone had an opinion. Darius heard fragments of conversation float through the security desk, voices low, words sharp. They say the Kalithari feel disrespected, might be pulling out completely. Another replied, can't blame 'em. Humans don't exactly play nice with outsiders. He scanned ID cards mechanically, trying to drown out the noise. Still, each sentence hit like static in his chest. It wasn't just about politics, it was personal. The absence of that small wave each morning had left a space in his day that no one else noticed but him. By the end of the week, Malik caught on. "Man, you still looking for her?" he asked, leaning on the counter with that same lopsided grin. "She's probably halfway to Jupiter by now." Darius gave a dry chuckle. "I ain't looking for her. Just feels strange, that's all." "You wave to someone long enough, it's like part of your shift." Malik nodded, a little more serious. "Yeah, but sometimes life switches lanes on you without blinking. Maybe she gone, maybe not. Either way, you keep doing you, bro." Darius appreciated that. Malik was rough around the edges, but loyal, the kind of man who'd share his lunch even when he barely had any. Still, the void in Darius's morning routine lingered. The port itself felt different too. The usual chatter dimmed. Travelers moved briskly, eyes darting toward the sky whenever new broadcasts played on the holoboards. The headlines glowed above customs lines. "Kalithari delegation suspends contact." The news anchors spoke with carefully neutral tones, but the unease beneath was clear. That night, during a slow shift, Darius stood by the large viewing window overlooking the upper docks. Through the transparent shield, he could see shuttles lifting off like tiny sparks against the twilight. Earth's curve glowed beneath the faint haze of atmosphere. Normally that sight gave him peace. But tonight, it just reminded him how small he was in all of it. How one wave could vanish into the silence of space. He rubbed his temple, thinking about what Grandma Rose would have said. "Don't carry worries that ain't yours, baby," she'd tell him. "Just be the kind of man the world can lean on." He tried, but the world felt heavier than usual. A voice startled him. "Brooks, we got a maintenance alert at Gate 12. Can you check it out?" It was Malik again, holding a diagnostic pad. Together they walked down the quiet corridor, past shuttered kiosks and humming conduits. The place smelled faintly of ozone and oil. When they reached the gate, Malik knelt by a flickering console. "Probably just a sensor glitch," he muttered. While Malik worked, Darius's eyes drifted to the floor near the boarding ramp. Something caught the light. A small object, round and metallic, half hidden by the shadows. He crouched, picked it up, and turned it over in his palm. It was smooth and cool, like glass with a pulse. A faint blue shimmer rippled beneath its surface. Symbols, delicate curves and angles, glowed faintly like the markings on Kalithari robes. "Hey, what you got there?" Malik asked, leaning over. "Don't know," Darius said quietly. "Looks familiar." He didn't say whose it reminded him of. "Better hand it to the supervisor," Malik advised. "Anything alien gets logged fast." "Yeah," Darius replied, pocketing it carefully. "Soon as the shift's over." But the weight of the object felt strange, almost personal, like something left behind on purpose. The terminal's intercom crackled, calling Malik to another section. Darius stayed behind for a moment, staring at the tiny artifact resting in his hand. For the first time since she vanished, a spark of hope stirred. Maybe this was nothing. Maybe it was everything. As he slipped it into his jacket, he caught his reflection in the window. Tired eyes, steady hands, and that old stubborn sense of curiosity that had always gotten him into small troubles. Outside, a shuttle streaked across the sky, a thin silver line fading into the night. He whispered to himself, "Guess I ain't done waving yet." The pendant sat in Darius's locker like a secret he hadn't decided whether to keep or confess. Each time he opened the metal door, that faint blue shimmer winked back at him, pulsing soft and steady, like a heartbeat waiting for an answer. He told himself it was probably just alien tech reacting to air exposure. But part of him, the part raised on gospel faith and quiet intuition, felt there was more to it. By the next morning, the story had spread through the staff ranks. Someone had found foreign material in the terminal, and the administration was hunting for it. Darius hesitated, the pendant warm in his pocket. He'd planned to turn it in right away, but something stopped him. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was respect. He'd seen the way people talked about the Calithari lately. Cold words, clipped tones, the same prejudice that used to follow his own people centuries ago. He didn't want this thing ending up locked in some lab, stripped of meaning. Malik caught up with him at the break counter. "Yo, you turned that thing in yet?" "Not yet," Darius said, keeping his tone casual. Malik raised an eyebrow. "Man, you better. You know how they get about alien stuff. Don't want to lose your badge over curiosity." "I know," Darius replied, sipping his coffee. "Just thinking on it." Malik studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Aight, but don't overthink it. Sometimes a rock's just a rock." Darius smiled faintly. "Yeah." Sometimes. After his shift, he walked the long corridor to the supervisor's office. The woman inside, Miss Harland, barely looked up from her console when he entered. Her voice was clipped, efficient. "What is it, Brooks?" He placed the pendant on her desk. "Found this near Gate 12 last night. Thought it might belong to one of the Calithari." Harland gave it a quick glance, unimpressed. "Another souvenir from the diplomats, probably. They leave these trinkets around all the time." She typed a few words, then waved her hand dismissively. "I'll file it. You can go." For a moment, Darius just stared at her. Something about the way she called it a trinket felt wrong, disrespectful even. But he nodded and left without arguing. Back in the locker room, he exhaled slowly. The day had drained him. The hum of air filters filled the silence, and for once he was glad to be alone. Then, faintly, a sound rose, a single, almost musical tone echoing from the pocket of his jacket. He froze. Pulling the jacket down, he reached into the pocket and found not empty space, but the pendant again. It glowed brighter now, colors swirling inside like liquid light. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. He'd just turned it in. He'd seen it on Harland's desk, but here it was, warm against his palm, humming softly. He swallowed hard, trying to make sense of it. Maybe Harland had given it back, and he forgot. Maybe he'd grabbed the wrong item, yet deep down he knew neither was true. Something about this object defied logic. He sat on the bench, heart steady but mind spinning. "All right," he muttered, voice low. "What you want from me?" The pendant pulsed once, then a flicker of sound, faint but unmistakable, formed words. "Darius." He dropped it instinctively, breath catching in his throat. The voice was soft, melodic, and familiar, not mechanical, alive. It was her. He knelt slowly, staring as the light inside the pendant rippled again. The whisper came once more, clearer this time. "Darius Brooks." He swallowed hard, whispering back, "Lyra." No response followed, just a dim glow fading into stillness. The hum quieted, but he was sure he hadn't imagined it. He leaned back, trembling slightly, half laughing in disbelief. "Man, I'm really losing it," he muttered. Yet deep inside, under the exhaustion and confusion, a spark of something new flickered, hope mixed with fear. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. Darius barely slept that night. The pendant lay on his nightstand, pulsing faintly in the dark like it had its own breath. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that voice again, soft, echoing through memory more than air. Darius Brooks. Her pronunciation was perfect, every syllable shaped with quiet care. He kept telling himself it was some kind of stored transmission, maybe a delayed message triggered by touch. But if that was true, why did it sound alive? Morning came heavy with fog and unease. When he arrived at the port, the air felt different. Security drones buzzed tighter patterns, supervisors barked orders faster, and no one was smiling. Something was happening. Darius nodded to Malik at the checkpoint, but his friend didn't joke like usual. "Hey, man," Malik said, lowering his voice. "So you hear about that signal?" "What signal?" "They say some weird transmission hit the network last night. Only partial data, but it came through human frequency bands. Corporates freaking out. They think somebody's been talking to off-worlders without clearance." Darius's stomach tightened. He forced a calm nod. "Yeah? Probably just some satellite echo." Malik shrugged. "Maybe. Still, they got everyone on high alert. Don't do nothing that gets you noticed, aight?" But it was too late for that. The pendant was already in his pocket again, humming faintly against his thigh. By midday, 2 men in dark uniforms approached his post. "Darius Brooks?" one asked, expression neutral but eyes sharp. "You'll need to come with us." He frowned. "What's this about?" "Questioning." "Standard protocol." Malik started to step forward, but Darius gave him a look that said, "Don't." He followed quietly, every step echoing against the polished floor. They led him through narrow corridors until they reached an interrogation room. Plain table, metal chairs, bright light. A woman entered next. Not his supervisor, someone higher. Her badge read Internal Security Division. "Mr. Brooks," she began, tone clipped. "We intercepted a communication linked to your personnel frequency. Do you have any knowledge of alien contact made through personal devices?" He blinked, forcing calm. "No, ma'am. I just work the gate. Only thing I contact is coffee." She didn't smile. "Our sensors picked up a repeating audio phrase matching your name. The origin traces to your locker coordinates." His pulse quickened. "My locker?" "Yes. Would you like to explain why?" He hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "I found something near Gate 12. Thought it was lost property. Gave it to my supervisor yesterday." Her brows knit. Supervisor Harland filed no report. That hit him like a cold slap. "What you mean, no report?" "I gave it to her myself. We checked her logs, nothing." He stared at the table, heart pounding. "Then maybe she forgot." "Objects of alien origin are not forgotten, Mr. Brooks," she said firmly. "Where is it now?" "I don't know," he lied, the pendant burning like a coal in his pocket. Silence hung heavy. She studied him for a long moment before standing. "Until we verify your statement, you're suspended. Do not leave the district." When she left, Malik was waiting outside the security office. "Bro, what happened?" "They think I'm talking to aliens," Darius said flatly. Malik's eyes widened, then narrowed. "That's crazy. You barely text people back." "Guess being quiet makes you suspicious now," Darius muttered. Malik's voice softened. "I didn't do nothing wrong, man. I'll vouch for you if they ask." Darius managed a tired smile. "Appreciate that." As he walked home later, the pendant pulsed again through the fabric of his jacket, faint but rhythmic. 3 beats, then silence, like a coded message. He didn't understand it, but he felt it. Something or someone was reaching out. And somehow, deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The morning after his suspension, Atlanta felt quieter than usual. Darius rode the early maglev downtown, watching the reflection of skyscrapers flicker across the train's glass walls. The headlines scrolling on the public feeds didn't mention his name, but the words, "Security Investigation at Orbital Port," might as well have been carved into his chest. Every vibration of the train felt heavier. He got off at the Southside stop, where the city's shine gave way to cracked sidewalks and the steady rhythm of real life. The smell of fried okra and engine oil floated from the corner shop. Children's laughter echoed faintly between brick walls tagged with murals, faces of leaders and ancestors, all painted in color and pride. Home was a small apartment above a barber shop, its porch lined with old flower pots his mother tended when she visited. Inside, the quiet wrapped around him too tightly. He placed his badge and ID on the kitchen table and stared at them for a long time. Years of punctual shifts, spotless records, gone in one afternoon because of a misunderstanding. Or maybe, he thought grimly, because of who he was. His mother called that afternoon. "Baby, you sound tired," she said, her voice warm and careful. "I'm all right, Ma," he replied, forcing steady tone. "Just some mess at work. Nothing I can't fix." "You been saying that since you were 12, she said softly. "Sometimes fixing means letting things breathe, not fighting them head on." He leaned against the counter, eyes on the cracked tile. "They think I did something wrong, Ma, something I didn't do. Then hold your peace till truth walks in. It always does. You come by for dinner tonight. Your cousin Jordan playing some new tracks. Says he got that cosmic funk now." Darius smiled despite himself. "Cosmic funk, huh? Sounds like him." "Don't lose your joy, baby. Try Trouble don't mean God left the room. That night, he went. Jordan's apartment pulsed with bass lines and laughter. The young musician, wild-haired and bright-eyed, greeted him with a hug. "Man, you look like the galaxy sat on you," Jordan joked. "Feels like it," Darius said, dropping into a chair. "Got benched at work. They think I'm mixed up in alien business." Jordan whistled. "Bro, that's wild. You? You barely check your messages. They wild in." "Yeah, well, apparently quiet makes folks nervous," Darius said, half smiling. Jordan poured him some ginger ale. "Ain't nothing wrong with quiet. Folks forget. Still waters run deep, right?" Darius nodded slowly. "Grandma used to say that too." They listened to one of Jordan's new songs, deep, soulful, filled with layered harmonies that seemed to stretch toward the stars. For a moment the music calmed him. It reminded him that life was bigger than the noise around it. Later, walking home under the city lights, he thought about everything. The wave, the pendant, the voice. None of it made sense. Maybe he should have told the truth during the interrogation, maybe not. Either way, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had shifted course, like a train rerouted to a destination unknown. When he reached his building, the street was empty except for a stray delivery drone humming overhead. The city air smelled like rain and steel. Inside, he sat at the kitchen table again. The pendant rested on the counter where he'd left it earlier. He hesitated, then placed his hand beside it. For a second he thought he felt warmth radiating through the metal. But it might have just been his imagination. He exhaled, whispering, "All right, Lyra, if you out there, whatever this is, you gotta make it clear. 'Cause right now, I'm out here on faith alone." The pendant remained silent, its glow dim but steady, like a heartbeat under glass. Outside, thunder rumbled over Atlanta, soft and distant, the promise of a storm building somewhere beyond the horizon. The storm broke at dawn. Thunder rolled over Atlanta like the sound of drums echoing from the sky, deep and commanding. Darius stood by the window, coffee cooling in his hand, watching streaks of light ripple behind the clouds. He thought it was lightning, until the colors shifted. They weren't white or yellow, but blue and silver swirling like auroras. The air itself seemed to hum. Then came the deep vibration, steady and rhythmic, like something enormous moving through the atmosphere. His compad lit up with alerts. Emergency broadcast. All citizens remain indoors. Orbital traffic suspended. Unknown vessels detected entering Earth orbit. He blinked at the words. Unknown vessels. The mug slipped from his fingers, shattering on the floor. Moments later, the city erupted. Cars froze mid-street, sirens howled, drones swarmed overhead broadcasting security warnings. People crowded balconies and rooftops, staring upward as the clouds split open, revealing vast shapes gliding through the heavens. They weren't warships, not exactly. They moved like dancers, sleek and symmetrical, surfaces rippling with energy that reflected the dawn. 100 of them, stretching across the skyline, covering the horizon. Darius felt his breath catch. He didn't need a news feed to know who they were. Every detail, those curved hulls, that blue luminescence, it all matched the style of Lyra's people. The Kalithari had returned. His compad buzzed again. Malik's face appeared on screen, eyes wide. "Yo, you see this, man? This ain't no holo ad." "You think they back for trade or what?" Darius hesitated. "I don't know, Jeez, but it ain't random." Malik frowned. "You look like you know something. Don't tell me this got to do with that pendant thing." Darius didn't answer right away. His gut twisted. "Maybe," he said quietly. "Brooks, if that's true, you better talk to somebody fast. Folks out here panicking." "The network's crashing." Outside, neighbors shouted, pointing at the sky. Children clung to their parents. The air smelled charged, like ozone after lightning. Darius's building vibrated faintly as a sonic boom rolled overhead. He turned on the broadcast feed. The screen filled with the image of the world's central communication tower in Geneva, surrounded by reporters. The anchor's voice trembled. And repeating, multiple Kalithari vessels have entered synchronized orbit. No hostilities detected. The fleet appears to be holding position over major population centers. Another voice cut in. "We're receiving partial transmissions from the lead vessel. Wait, translation algorithms are active." The message appears directed toward a specific individual. The name being repeated is Darius Brooks. The world seemed to stop. Darius stared at the screen, disbelieving. "What?" Malik's voice cracked through the calm again. "They said your name, bro, you hear that? You gotta be kidding me." He didn't answer. His pulse thundered louder than the storm outside. The pendant on the counter began to glow again, brighter than before, its light filling the kitchen with a pale blue hue. He reached for it slowly. The warmth spread through his fingertips, up his arm, and then, like before, a voice filled his mind, clear, calm, unmistakable. "Darius Brooks of Earth," it said. "We have returned." He staggered back, heart racing. "Lyra." There was no reply, only the faint echo of her voice fading as the pendant dimmed again. Across the city, fighter jets took to the sky, streaks of smoke trailing behind them. The news feed erupted with speculation, politicians arguing, generals barking orders, analysts shouting over each other. But none of it reached Darius. He was already moving, grabbing his jacket, shoving the pendant into his pocket. If she was truly here, if this fleet had come because of her, then the answers he'd been waiting for were finally above his head. And somehow, he knew they were coming for him. The world had gone still, but not quiet. Every screen, every radio, every holofeed on Earth carried the same impossible headline. Kalithari fleet demands contact with one human, Darius Brooks. Darius couldn't leave his apartment without the sound of his own name echoing from open windows. His compad buzzed non-stop, news outlets, old friends, strangers claiming to be cousins. Even the pastor from his childhood church left a message saying, "Son, whatever this is, walk in grace. The Lord don't pick folks at random." By mid-morning, armored transports rolled through the streets. The government wasn't playing games anymore. Darius watched from his window as drones scanned rooftops and soldiers blocked intersections. It looked less like protection and more like containment. A firm knock hit his door. "Mr. Brooks, open up." He opened it to find 3 officers in black and silver uniforms, Earth Alliance security. The lead one, a woman with cropped hair and calm eyes, spoke first. "Darius Brooks, you are to come with us immediately. This is not an arrest. You are being escorted to the orbital headquarters under direct order of the Global Council." His first instinct was disbelief. "You serious?" "Completely." Malik, who'd rushed over from down the hall, whispered, "Man, don't let 'em push you round." Darius gave a slow nod. "It's fine, Malik. Guess I ain't got much of a choice." The ride to the launch zone was surreal. The highways were empty except for military convoys. Helicopters swept the skies. From every direction he could see the Kalithari ships above, vast, luminous arcs suspended in perfect stillness, their light painting the clouds like living stained glass. Inside the transport, the silence pressed on him. The pendant in his pocket pulsed gently, as if aware. One of the guards finally spoke, his voice low. "Never seen anything like it. 100 ships, not a single weapon drawn. They just wait in." Darius nodded slightly. "Yeah, that's what they do." When they arrived at the orbital lift station, journalists swarmed outside the barricades. Darius caught flashes of cameras, shouts from the crowd. Some voices cheered his name, others cursed it. Hero. Threat. Chosen. Everyone had a theory. The officer guided him through security and onto the lift platform. As the capsule rose toward the upper atmosphere, Earth's curve unfolded beneath them, cities glowing like veins of light. He whispered to himself, "What did I do to deserve this?" The officer glanced at him. "They said the fleet won't speak to anyone else." "Only you." He stared out the glass as clouds swallowed them. "Then I guess I better find out why." When the capsule docked with the orbital command ring, the air felt charged. The Global Council had gathered in person, faces grim and wary. Screens around the room displayed the lead Kalithari vessel, its surface rippling like water under sunlight. The chairwoman, an older woman with silver hair and a diplomat's measured calm, turned toward him. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "you've been identified by the Kalithari as their requested point of contact. Do you have any prior connection to them?" He hesitated. "Just one. I used to wave to one of their diplomats every morning before her shuttle launched. That's all." A murmur spread across the room. One councilman scoffed. "A wave? You expect us to believe—" "Quiet," the chairwoman snapped. "The transmission is resuming." The lights dimmed. A projection filled the chamber, Lyra Taval's face, calm and radiant, her silver skin glowing softly. "People of Earth," her voice said, clear and resonant, "we have returned not for war nor trade, but for truth. We seek Darius Brooks of Atlanta, the human who greeted us each dawn with peace when others met us with suspicion. His gesture changed our understanding of your kind." Every official in the room froze. Lyra's eyes turned toward the camera, steady and purposeful. "I request his presence aboard our flagship immediately." The projection faded, leaving silence heavy as gravity. Darius exhaled slowly. "Guess she remembers me after all." The transport airlock sealed behind him with a hiss that echoed like finality. For a moment, Darius couldn't move. He was standing inside the Kalithari flagship, an impossible place for a man who used to check ID badges and wave at shuttles. The air shimmered faintly, infused with a metallic sweetness that reminded him of rain on hot pavement. The walls pulsed gently with light, like the ship itself was breathing. A voice spoke softly from ahead. "You came." He turned. Lyra Taval stood at the end of the corridor, radiant and calm as he remembered, though her eyes carried something heavier now, a weight beyond diplomacy. Her skin caught the ship's glow, casting faint ripples of color across the polished floor. "Didn't have much choice," Darius said, forcing a small smile. "You brought 100 ships looking for me. Hard to ignore that." Her lips curved slightly. "It was not meant as threat. It was respect." He studied her for a beat, trying to read her expression. "You could have just called." "I tried," she said, glancing at the pendant hanging from his neck. "You heard me." He touched it instinctively. "Yeah, still trying to figure out how." "The pendant was encoded with my voice signature," she explained. "A message meant to activate if danger arose. I did not expect it would reach you first." He hesitated, then asked the question that had burned in him for days. "Why me, Lyra? I'm nobody special. I'm a man with a badge, a steady job, and a mortgage." "Why send all this for me?" She walked closer, her gaze never leaving his. "Because in all our years among your people, no one looked at us without fear or greed, except you. Every morning, without words, you offered peace. You showed humanity without calculation. Do you know how rare that is, Darius Brooks?" He swallowed, unsure what to do with her praise. "I was just being polite." And yet that simple act spoke louder than speeches. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You reminded us that goodness is not declared. It is lived. When my council doubted your world, I told them of you. They laughed at first, now they watch in silence." The weight of her words settled deep in his chest. He shifted uneasily. "Are you brought all these ships here just to prove that?" "Not just that," she said quietly. "Our alliance is failing. The Galactic Union questions Earth's place among us. Many of your leaders feed that doubt. But when I spoke of you, they listened. They demanded to meet the human who changed my view of your kind. You are our test." He frowned. "Test? For what? To see if your species deserves to remain in the Union." The words hit like ice water. "You mean this whole thing, these ships, the panic, all of it, depends on me?" "In part," she admitted. "You are not a soldier or a politician. That is your strength. You represent the human spirit unfiltered by power." He rubbed his temple. "Lady, that's a whole lot of weight for one man who barely keeps his rent paid." She smiled faintly. "Then perhaps that humility is exactly what your world needs to show." He looked around, absorbing the alien elegance surrounding him, the shifting light, the faint hum that seemed to match his pulse. "Feels like I'm standing between two worlds right now," he said softly. "You are," she replied. "And soon you will have to choose how they meet." Her words lingered, heavy and sacred. Somewhere deep in the ship, a tone resonated, a call to assembly, distant but urgent. Lyra glanced toward the sound, then back to him. "Come, they are waiting for you." He followed her through the luminous corridor, each step echoing with a truth he couldn't yet name. The man who once waved at strangers was about to stand before the galaxy. The chamber was vast, circular and silent. Darius stood at its center, the eyes of dozens of alien delegates fixed upon him. Their bodies shimmered in different textures, crystalline, feathered, metallic, like living embodiments of light itself. Above them floated banners of holographic text, translating the proceedings into a dozen languages. The air thrummed with quiet energy, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Lyra stood beside him, a steady presence in the storm. "They've gathered from every colony in the Union," she murmured. "Each will decide if Earth remains part of our alliance. Speak from truth, Darius." "They value sincerity more than perfection." He nodded, though his palms were slick with sweat. "Truth, huh? Guess that's all I got." The presiding counselor, a towering being of translucent gold, addressed him. "Human of Earth, you have been summoned not as leader but as witness. Your actions have reached our stars through the voice of Lyra Taval. Tell us, why should your species remain among us?" Darius's throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to back away, to let someone else speak for humanity. But no one else was here. It was just him, an ordinary man standing before eternity. He took a slow breath. "I ain't a scientist or a general," he began. "Don't have fancy degrees or big titles. I'm just a man who stands at a gate and makes sure people get where they need to go." A few murmurs rippled through the chamber. He went on, voice steadying as he spoke. "You want to know what it means to be human? It's showing up every day, even when nobody notices. It's smiling when you're tired, helping folks when you don't got much yourself. We ain't perfect. Lord knows we mess up plenty, but we keep trying. We fall, we fight, we rebuild, that's what we do." Lyra's gaze softened. The delegates listened, expressions unreadable. "One of y'all asked why I waved every morning," Darius continued. "Truth is, I didn't think much about it. Just figured if somebody looks your way, you show respect. My grandma used to tell me, respect is how you tell the world you still got hope. Maybe that's what I was doing, hoping we could all share the same space without fear." The gold-hued counselor leaned forward. "You believe such gestures carry moral weight?" "I believe they start something," Darius said. "A wave ain't big, but it's the first brick in a bridge. You can't build peace with speeches alone. You build it with small acts done over and over, even when nobody claps for them." A faint hum passed through the delegates, like a chorus of thought. Some tilted their heads, others murmured to their translators. Another delegate, this one sharp-voiced and silver-scaled, challenged, "Yet your world wages war, pollutes its home, exploits its own kind. Why should we trust you to walk among the stars?" Darius hesitated, then nodded. "You're right. We've done wrong. But we learn. Sometimes the only way we grow is by seeing our mistakes up close. We ain't finished yet. We still writing our story. You look at us like we broken, but we just unfinished." Silence fell again. Then Lyra stepped forward, addressing the council. "You see, this is what I meant. His people stumble, yet they do not surrender to cynicism. Their flaws are real, but so is their will to rise." Darius glanced at her, gratitude flickering in his eyes. He turned back to the council. "If you want to judge humanity, don't just look at the ones with power. Look at the ones sweeping the floors, holding doors, raising kids, singing songs when the world feel heavy. That's where you'll find who we are." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the gold being spoke again. "Your words have been heard. The council will deliberate." As the lights dimmed and whispers filled the chamber, Darius finally exhaled. His legs trembled, but his voice had not. He looked at Lyra and managed a quiet smile. "Well," he murmured, "guess I said my piece." The waiting room outside the council chamber was cold and silent, filled with a tension that pressed against Darius's chest like a weight. He sat on a curved bench of translucent glass, staring at his hands. They were steady, but his mind wasn't. The words he'd spoken still echoed inside him, replaying with every heartbeat. Lyra stood near the window, gazing out into the dark stretch of orbit where Earth glimmered below. Her expression was unreadable, part calm, part ache. "They're deliberating," she said quietly. "Some will see your truth. Others will only see your kind's history." He rubbed his palms together. "Can't blame 'em." "History's messy." "History," she replied, "is the excuse the fearful use to deny the present." He looked up, half smiling. That sounds like something my grandma would say. She turned toward him, eyes softening. You carry her voice well. He chuckled, low and tired. She'd probably tell me to pray instead of talking to space diplomats. Before Lyra could respond, the door hissed open and a Kalithari attendant entered, his features tense. The council's discussion grows divided, he said in clipped tones. Some demand the immediate withdrawal of your species from the Union. Others argue for mercy. The debate has become volatile. Volatile how? Darius asked. The attendant hesitated. Some factions suggest Earth cannot be trusted, that your influence will bring disorder to the galaxy. Lyra's jaw tightened. And yet they forget that disorder is how evolution begins. Be careful, Ambassador, the attendant warned. Your defense of this human has already cost you standing. When he left, Darius exhaled slowly. So even speaking up for me gets you in trouble now? Lyra's voice softened. Truth often carries a price. He leaned back, staring at the glowing ceiling. I ain't trying to be nobody's savior. I just wanted to do right by folks. Now I got whole galaxies arguing over me. You did not choose this, she said, but destiny rarely asks permission. Her words sank deep. He stood and paced, the hum of the ship vibrating through the floor beneath his boots. The view outside showed streaks of light, ships adjusting orbit, fleets repositioning like a storm preparing to break. Lyra, he said finally, what happens if they say no, if they decide we ain't worth keeping? She hesitated, then spoke with painful honesty. They will close your world's borders. Withdraw technology, cut contact, humanity will be isolated again. His throat went dry. Back to being alone. Yes, she whispered. Alone. They stood in silence, the enormity of it stretching between them. Then Lyra stepped closer. You must not lose faith. What you said in there moved many hearts, even mine. He turned toward her, searching her face. You really think words can change all this? I have lived among stars and seen empires rise, she said, yet I have never seen courage as quiet as yours. It changes more than you know. Before he could answer, alarms blared through the corridor, sharp, metallic notes that made his skin prickle. A voice spoke over the intercom, distorted but urgent. Attention! Unidentified transmission from Earth's defense network. Orbital alignment shifting. The Council demands immediate resolution. Lyra's expression darkened. They're forcing a decision. Now? He asked. Now, she said grimly. Moments later, the chamber doors opened again. A guard motioned them forward. The Council will deliver its verdict. As they entered, the great hall glowed crimson. The delegates stood in clusters, murmuring in dozens of languages. The presiding gold being struck the air with a resonant tone that silenced all voices. Humanity, it declared, stands on the edge of its own consequence. The vote will commence. Lyra glanced at Darius. Her voice was barely a whisper. Whatever they decide, you've already shown them our truth. He met her eyes, steady now. Then let's hope they were listening. The chamber fell still as the first light of judgment began to rise. The chamber lights dimmed to a soft indigo glow as the council entered deliberation. Darius stood beside Lyra, his heartbeat slow but heavy. The hum of energy around them softened into near silence. Above, a transparent dome opened to reveal the endless spread of stars, silver threads across black velvet. Earth shone below like a small promise in the dark. They argue, Lyra said quietly, her voice like wind over glass. Some wish to believe in you. Others fear what belief will cost. He folded his arms, eyes fixed on his home planet. Seems folks everywhere scared of the same thing, looking foolish for trusting too soon. She smiled faintly. Perhaps foolishness is another word for hope. They stood in the glow of the cosmos, two silhouettes from different worlds bound by silence and shared exhaustion. After a long pause, Darius spoke. You know, when I was a kid, my grandma used to tell me stories about the stars. She said each one was a soul that learned to shine instead of fade. I used to think she was talking about heaven. Maybe she was talking about this. Lyra turned toward him. Your grandmother must have been wise. She was, he said softly. Taught me to see worth in things most folks overlook. He paused, eyes on her. Guess that's how I saw you. For a moment, she said nothing. The faint lights from the chamber flickered across her features, and Darius could see something unguarded in her expression, something almost human. Among my people, she said slowly, touch is sacred. It means understanding beyond words. He held her gaze. Then maybe it's time we understood each other. She hesitated, then extended her hand, delicate, almost translucent, threads of light tracing her veins. Darius reached out, his darker skin contrasting against the shimmer of hers. When their palms met, the air seemed to thrum as if the universe had drawn a breath. Warmth surged through him, not fire, not energy, but peace. Lyra's voice softened. When you waved to me, I thought you were mocking us. Humans had looked at us with fear for so long, but day after day you kept waving, even when no one watched. Didn't need a reason, he murmured. Just felt right. That simple kindness, she said, was the only thing that reached me. I carried it home. It changed everything I believed about your kind. He felt his throat tighten. All that just 'cause I raised my hand? Yes, she said. Sometimes the smallest light becomes the only one left in the dark. He looked back toward Earth. The clouds there glowed faintly from city lights, swirling in patterns that felt achingly fragile. You ever wonder, he said, why folks like me still try? We've been kicked around, doubted, forgotten, but we still show up, still love. Still believe things can get better. She tilted her head. Because your kind carries music in your hearts. Even in silence, I hear it. He smiled faintly. Guess that's the gospel in us. They stood that way for a while, hands still joined, silence stretching between heartbeats. For the first time since the ships arrived, Darius felt calm, not sure, not safe, but seen, truly seen. I don't know what happens next, he said quietly, but if this is the end of it all, at least I know I did right by somebody. Lyra's eyes glimmered, reflecting the soft curve of Earth below. This is not the end, she said. It is a beginning written in courage. A tone echoed from the corridor, low, steady, urgent. She turned toward the sound, but her hand lingered in his. They are calling us back. The council is ready to decide. He took one last look at the stars before following her. Then let's go hear what the universe thinks of us. The verdict never came. Before the council could speak, the ship trembled. Once, then again, harder. The floor pulsed beneath Darius's boots, and a deep vibration rolled through the air like thunder trapped inside steel. Alarms flared red across the chamber walls. Lyra's voice cut through the confusion. That's not the council. Something's attacking the fleet. Darius's heart kicked. Attacking? From who? A young Kalithari officer burst into the room, his luminous armor flickering. Human strike forces, unauthorized missiles launched from planetary surface. One has already hit the lower ring of the fleet stationed above North America. What? Darius shouted. That's impossible. Nobody ordered that. Someone did, the officer snapped, and now they blame you. The room spun. Lyra turned toward the council, but the delegates were already shouting over one another. Voices layered with accusation, fear, and rage. Words like betrayal and termination filled the air. Darius could barely breathe. Lyra grabbed his arm. Come with me, now. They ran through the glowing corridor, her steps light and quick, his heavy with disbelief. This ain't real, he muttered. I didn't do nothing. I been up here this whole time. I know, she said. But panic doesn't care about truth. The ship's hum shifted into a low roar as another shockwave rippled through the hull. Through the viewing ports, Darius glimpsed streaks of fire cutting across the black sky, missiles spiraling, energy shields flaring bright. Below, Earth's surface glimmered in chaos, defense systems activating, lights blinking out across cities. Then he saw it. Atlanta. His city, smoke curling upward from where orbital debris had fallen. His throat went dry. No, Lyra followed his gaze. Your home? He nodded, voice trembling. Down there, my people. They didn't ask for this. She pressed a hand to his shoulder. We will stop it. How? by showing them what trust still looks like. Her confidence felt like light cutting through smoke, but Darius could see the fear flickering behind her eyes. They reached the command nexus, a wide room of swirling holograms and frantic motion. Officers shouted readings, systems blinked warnings, and every screen showed the same grim truth. Human forces had fired, and the Kalithari were preparing to respond. A general turned toward Lyra. "Ambassador, the Council authorizes retaliation. They've locked on to multiple terrestrial sites." "No," she said sharply. "If you strike back, this alliance dies forever." "They struck first," the general replied. "Honor demands balance." Darius stepped forward, fists clenched. "You talk about honor, but you ain't see the folks down there. The kids, the elders, the ones who can't even spell union. You hit them, you hit me. You hit every good soul who ever tried to do right in a broken world." The general's crystalline eyes narrowed. "You presume much, human." "I know enough to see the truth," Darius said, voice rising. "You came here to judge us, not destroy us. If you answer hate with more hate, what makes you any different from what you fear?" Lyra turned to the general. "He's right. Give me control of the relay grid." The general hesitated. "Ambassador, do it!" The command console flickered to life beneath her hands. Streams of alien code filled the air. "We'll deactivate the counter-strike systems," she said quickly. "But someone must stabilize the reactor's feedback loop. It's overloading." Without hesitation, Darius moved beside her. "Tell me what to do." "Follow my rhythm," she said, fingers flying across the controls. 3 pulses, then break the sequence when I say. Energy surged around them, the hum rising to a scream. Sparks burst from the floor as power channels overloaded. Darius's chest burned, but he didn't stop. Every instinct screamed to run, yet something deeper kept him steady. Duty, loyalty, faith. Lyra shouted, "Now!" He slammed the final key sequence. The noise stopped. The ship's vibration eased, fading to a low hum. For a moment, there was silence. Fragile, trembling, miraculous. Lyra exhaled. "You did it." But Darius could already see the warning lights flicker again, faint, crimson, ominous. And he knew the storm wasn't done yet. Smoke curled through the corridors like ghostly ribbons. The deck plate still vibrated with the echo of the reactor surge, but for the first time since the chaos began, the fleet was stable. Darius leaned against the wall, sweat cooling on his skin, lungs aching from the adrenaline that hadn't quite left him. Lyra was beside him, scanning readouts that glowed faint blue across her wristband. "The chain reaction is contained," she said. "Have you saved us?" He shook his head. "We saved each other." Her eyes met his, steady, luminous, alive. "Without you, there would be no fleet left to save." He gave a dry chuckle. "Guess that means you owe me dinner. Though I don't think y'all eat what I eat." Her expression softened with a hint of humor. Perhaps not. But gratitude transcends menu. Before either could say more, a sharp tone pierced the air. The communication console flared to life, showing a dozen human faces, officials, generals, world leaders. The connection flickered, unstable. A man's voice filled the chamber, urgent and raw. "Kalithari flagship, do you copy? We didn't authorize those attacks. It was a rogue faction." "Repeat unauthorized launch. We're standing down. Please hold your fire." Lyra exhaled, relief visible even across her alien features. "Then it was not your world that sought destruction." "Never was," Darius said. "Just folks too scared to see the truth." The council delegates appeared next, shimmering forms still unsettled, the golden presiding being addressed them both. "Ambassador Tival, human Darius Brooks, you prevented escalation between our worlds. Explain your actions." Lyra straightened, voice calm but fierce. "We faced a moment that demanded faith. This human chose compassion over fear, even when accused of treason. His courage preserved not only this fleet, but the fragile thread binding our species." A murmur rippled through the council. Darius felt every eye on him again. "I just did what anybody with a conscience would have done," he said quietly. "You don't fix wrong by adding more of it." The gold being's gaze shifted, unreadable. You risked your life for those not of your kind." "Kindness don't need translation," Darius said. The chamber fell into reverent silence. Then slowly, other Kalithari officers entered, engineers, medics, diplomats, all pausing as they saw him standing there, a single man amid light and chaos. One by one they extended their hands in salute, a gesture of deep respect among their people. Lyra looked at him with pride. "They honor you." He hesitated, humbled. "I don't deserve all that." "You do," she said softly. "Because when our logic failed, you reminded us what heart means." He smiled faintly. "Guess my grandma'd say that's the Lord working through a fool." Her laugh, gentle, musical, cut through the tension like sunlight after rain. "Then perhaps we should all be fools sometimes." As the council session ended, news rippled across the fleet. Human and Kalithari rescue ships worked together to recover fallen debris over Atlanta. Darius watched the reports quietly, relief mixing with sorrow at the damage below. Malik's voice came through the comms, rough but alive. "Bro, you won't believe this. They got me helping fix power grids with aliens, man, aliens. You good up there?" "Still breathing," Darius replied. "Keep that city standing here." "You know it," Malik said. "Don't make me come drag you home." When the call ended, Lyra approached him again. "Your people will remember this day," she said. "Not for the fire, but for the hands that reached through it." He nodded slowly, hands that didn't let go. Outside the viewport, the blue curve of Earth glowed brighter, a fragile jewel reborn in calm light. For the first time, the human and Kalithari fleets moved in harmony, orbiting side by side. Lyra extended her hand toward him, not in greeting, but in something deeper. "Darius Brooks," she said softly, "our worlds will heal together. If you will stand with me, not as witness, but as partner." He looked at her hand, then at the planet below, the place that shaped him, flawed but beautiful. And he took her hand again. "Then let's get to work." The Kalithari fleet hung over Earth like a crown of light, 100 ships aligned in perfect symmetry, each radiating calm instead of threat. The fires over Atlanta had faded to faint embers, replaced by the hum of rebuilding efforts that reached from ground to orbit. Humanity had seen the edge of destruction, and somehow, through a single act of grace, had stepped back. Darius stood beside Lyra in the grand observation hall, surrounded by delegates from both worlds. He wore the same uniform he'd once guarded in, a simple security badge gleaming against freshly pressed fabric. It wasn't power that brought him there. It was integrity. The presiding councillor's golden form shimmered as it addressed the assembly. "For cycles we doubted Earth's worthiness, yet, in its darkest hour, one human's compassion prevented a war. This council acknowledges that act not as miracle, but as proof." Lyra stepped forward, her voice carrying the calm strength of command. "Compassion is not proof of perfection," she said. "It is the foundation of understanding, and understanding, not domination, is the true measure of civilization." A murmur of approval swept through the chamber. The decision was clear. The alliance would continue. But what came next, no one expected. Lyra turned toward Darius, her gaze unwavering. "Before witnesses of both our worlds," she said, "I extend to you a bond beyond diplomacy." He blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "A bond?" She nodded. "Among the Kalithari, when two souls act in harmony that changes history, they are bound in recognition. It is our highest vow, partnership of spirit, of purpose, of peace. I ask for your hand, Darius Brooks, not as symbol but as promise." The chamber went silent. The weight of her words hit him like gravity shifting. "You mean, you want me to stand beside me," she said, her tone soft but resolute. "To represent the heart of your people as I represent mine. Not as savior, not as servant, but as equal." He stared at her hand, silver light shimmering along her skin. He thought of his grandmother's voice, of long nights on the job when no one noticed him, of Malik's jokes, of his mother's steady faith. A lifetime of quiet endurance had brought him to this one impossible choice. "You sure about this?" he asked. "My kind still got a lot to learn." She smiled. "So do mine." He took a slow breath. "Then I guess we learn together." When his hand met hers, a cascade of light rippled through the hall, blue and gold intertwining, forming a pulse that resonated through every ship in orbit. Delegates gasped as the glow spread across the fleet, linking one vessel to another, until the entire armada burned with unity. Below, the light reached Earth's atmosphere, faint but visible from the ground. People looked up from streets and rooftops, watching the sky shimmer in waves of color. For the first time in centuries, no border, no creed, no fear could divide them. Lyra's voice echoed through the intercom network, translated into every human language. "We came to judge," she said, "but found something greater than judgment. We found humanity, the courage to see another and still choose hope. From this day forward, we stand not as conquerors or guests, but as kin in purpose." Darius spoke next, his voice deep and steady. "Ain't about who's stronger or smarter. It's about who keeps showing up with love, even when the world says it ain't worth it. That's what makes us human." Applause filled the chamber, soft at first, then swelling like a rising tide. Lyra turned to him. "So, Darius Brooks of Earth, what do you wish to do first as our bond begins?" He smiled, glancing at the glowing horizon below. "First thing, I think we wave." She tilted her head. "Wave? Yeah," he said, raising his hand toward the planet, "for the folks down there so they know we see 'em." And together, beneath the light of 100 ships, they waved, one small gesture echoing across the stars. Years later, the sky over Atlanta no longer belonged to one world alone. Shuttles hummed between Earth and orbit like migrating birds, trails of blue light weaving through clouds. Children pointed upward without fear, their laughter rising where sirens once wailed. The city had healed, not perfect, but alive. At the Memorial Park near the rebuilt terminal, a bronze statue stood beneath the morning sun. It showed a man in a security uniform, one hand lifted in a quiet wave. The plaque below read, "Darius Brooks, the first greeting." Darius sat on a nearby bench, older now, his hair touched with silver. He didn't like the statue much. It felt too still, too solemn, but folks said it reminded them to look up. That was enough. Lyra approached from the walkway, moving with the same calm grace he'd first noticed years ago. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under daylight. "They finished it," she said, gazing at the monument. "Yeah," he replied, smiling. "Told 'em not to make me look so serious, but they said heroes gotta look thoughtful." "Are you not thoughtful?" "Sometimes," he admitted, chuckling. "Mostly when I'm trying to remember where I left my coffee." She laughed softly, a sound that still made the world around him feel lighter. "Your people still struggle to see themselves as extraordinary. That's 'cause most of us just trying to make rent," he said. "But maybe that's what makes us special. We keep going, even when nobody's clapping." They watched as a group of schoolchildren gathered around the statue, their teacher explaining how one man's small act had changed the stars. One girl, no older than 10, looked up and mimicked the wave, smiling shyly. Darius felt his throat tighten. "She gets it," he whispered. "Ain't about the statue. It's about remembering to see folks." Lyra nodded. "You taught that to more than children, Darius. You taught it to galaxies." He looked toward the sky where the Kalithari fleet shimmered faintly in orbit, peaceful now, part of the Earth's skyline like distant constellations. "Crazy thing is," he said, "it all started with just a wave." "That is how the greatest things begin," she replied. A single gesture that refuses to be small. They walked together toward the terminal entrance, where human and Kalithari workers moved side by side, voices mixing, laughter overlapping, languages intertwining like threads of one song. Lyra stopped by the glass wall that looked out over the launch pads. "I leave again tonight," she said quietly. "The Council wishes me to establish the new Alliance embassy near Titan Station. I wanted to see you before I go." He nodded, though the thought tugged at him. "You always moving among the stars, huh?" "And you always anchored to Earth," she said gently. "That balance is what keeps us both grounded." He smiled. "Guess so." For a moment neither spoke. Then she reached out, placing her cool, luminous hand over his. "When we first met, I did not understand your kind. Now I cannot imagine a universe without you." His voice was low, sincere. "I feel the same, Lyra. You showed us how to look past the fear." She tilted her head. "Fear is easy. Understanding is work." He squeezed her hand lightly. "Then I reckon we still got work to do." They stood that way until the boarding call echoed overhead. Lyra turned toward the gate, her eyes lingering on him one last time. "Goodbye, Darius Brooks of Earth." "See you soon, Lyra Taval of Everywhere," he said. As she departed, the light from the ships above glowed brighter, scattering across the morning sky. Darius looked up, raising his hand once more, not in farewell but in greeting. The gesture caught the sunlight, and for a heartbeat, it seemed the whole world waved back. Somewhere in the distance, a choir began to sing, soft, soulful, the kind of song that rose from deep roots and reached for heaven. Darius smiled, his heart steady and full. "Kindness ain't small," he murmured. "It's the seed of every miracle." If Darius's story moved you, subscribe to the channel and click the next video on your screen to keep exploring humanity's journey among the stars.